My name is Jordan Pearson. I'm from Torbay in Devon. I've been a youth worker, I've been a support worker, and I've even ran my own community centre. And throughout those journeys, I've met so many ordinarily kind people that don't get the recognition that they deserve. So this is my attempt to recognise them. I think kindness is within all of us. It costs nothing to be kind, but it probably means the most. We're looking for kind people that are passionate about what they do and really trying to make a huge difference in their community. These people are the backbone of our society, giving one thing that you can't get more of, their time. In this series, my friend Rach from Part-Time Working Mummy joins me as we travel up and down the country in our search for ordinary kindness. We're in Banbury in the UK to meet an organisation called BYCE, which stands for Banbury Youth Community Enterprise, and they're tackling a problem close to my heart. With a lot less community centres and no real alternatives, young people up and down the country are finding themselves a little lost, and as a consequence are getting themselves into trouble.
BYCE is obviously about youth and community, but there is a social enterprise element of it that we aim to develop. So we run projects that we get small pots of funding for, and we do community-based work really in the community. So we don't have a premises, we work from home doing all our all the admin and all of that, and then we do one-to-one youth mentoring, so we'll obviously go out and do activities with a young person. The detached youth project, obviously that is in the community, in the parks and things like that. We do advocacy for families that are struggling with perhaps engaging with social care.
Yeah, I mean, we had we were the other night, and we're setting up this Sunday kitchen where they come and they get free food on a Sunday, but they're taking it in turns to cook, get their food hygiene certificate. So it's like a little takeaway cafe, but they'll run it. And this kid had a bad time in the football session. He came out. I said, "Do you want this?" Cough, threw it in the air. But he was quite interesting. He sat and he sulked. And I went, "Are you all right?" And he went, "Yeah." I said, "Do you want this?" He said, "Yeah, give me tomorrow." And it was just about, I could have chastised him about throwing the paper. It's about choosing your moments. But there was no, his people often, I think, they put plasters on things, so they deal with the issues that are arising, like throwing the paper, the storming out the room, but they don't deal with the cause. So like in schools, quite often the kid will get sent out because they've kicked off. I know they've got to keep the rest of the school and the class going and that, but actually they get told off for kicking off, and then it escalates. Whereas it's actually, why did he do that? What caused that? What's behind that?
There's a real problem at the moment with something called county lines, with a countrywide explosion of crime, syndicates and gangs hiring children to run drugs and other criminal errands.
The evilness of county lines is that once the hook is in, it's in deep, and what happens to kids once they're in it, it's really hard to get them out, because those people will always chase those kids.
Because they know it's there.
They know they're there, and if they can get hold of them, they will. You have the dark side, which is the stabbings, the county lines. You know, we've buried a lot of young men in this town because of misadventure, murder, all sorts of things. It's quite hard to go to their funerals. Thing is, it's like once you've been to 2 or 3, you stop crying. And that's when you think, why am I accepting this is normal now? You know? But you do, because it is normal, you know?
And it shouldn't be.
It should not be.
Because of where we're located and the easy access train lines to a lot of places like Reading, London, Birmingham, Oxford, Banbury has become a bit of a hotspot over the last 6-7 years. We just try and engage with young people out on the streets, in parks and areas, and just build up a trusting relationship of just talking, and help to then signpost them to other activities and things that they can get involved in, which reduces then the risk of them being involved in county lines.
What's one of the worst things, or the worst thing that you've experienced that's kind of just kept you awake that night?
The thought of kids that are going to go home and get beaten. Because we've had kids come in, we had a kid come in and he got a giant pair of shoes on. This is years ago, this is an adult now. And I looked at it, she was like, his shoes, got my dad's shoes on. So we got dad's shoes on, so I ran out the house. And I said, what's that? Got blood on them. He'd been thrown against the wall. He hadn't got any shoes, he'd run out the house. He'd got blood on them. And it was his blood. And then the parents came down and they were really screaming and shouting at us. And we said, well, do you want him to go into care? We'll put him into care. Do you know what I mean? We will make that phone call. And that was really hard. And then he ran away. And he was gone for about 4 or 5 days, and the police eventually found him. And his life didn't turn out good in the end. But you just thought, turns out his mum had stolen his money. He'd kicked off, got thrown across the room, It's
that home life that you know that they've
yeah,
got.
and you look and you just think, you ain't gonna stand a chance, man.
Yeah.
It's poverty. I do. I put a lot of it down to pure poverty and lack of opportunity. So, some people, like a degree, where I come from, it's like, what are you going to do that for? It's useless where I come from because people, it's that aspiration of you get a job, you work in a shop, you go in a factory. Do you know what I mean? I just happened by accident to come across this work and decide that people don't do that where I'm from a lot. Do you know what I mean? It's about those expectations. And there's this thing, like you mentioned earlier, of kind of an assumption, I think, that if you're poor, then you're stupid. If you're poor, then you're uneducated.
You're not deserving of
You're not
things
deserving,
that
and you're not deserving of financial reward in any form or opportunity, And that really annoys me because we work with them kids, and some of them, they're really naughty. I shouldn't laugh, but I just like kids, But you could say to, I'm thinking of a certain young person who's about 12 or 13, mate, here's a motorbike, can you strip that down? He'd strip it down, put it back together. The engineering, math skills in that lad are amazing, but he didn't go to school.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And actually, that's a really bright boy.
And
the
I think
potential within them,
yeah.
we're wasting a whole generation of entrepreneurs, and they've all got these really different, a few of them I'm looking at and thinking, yeah, you're going to be a young volunteer, you can be a young volunteer, because you've got really good person skills, So-and-so, they're really good with their mechanics and their bikes. He's really good at art,
But then you've got a teacher at school who, when he goes in and kicks off on a Monday, just wants him out of class.
And we get that all the time. And then when they get thrown out, it's really hard to get them back in because schools will put barriers in the way, i.e., you've got the wrong shoes, you've got the wrong bag. Oh, black marks. Oh, your tie's not straight. What's that got to do with education? That is nothing about learning, is it? That's about whether that kid will fit in that box while it's in that place.
Thankfully, there are people out there like Selma and Kelly who reach out to the local teenagers and build meaningful connections. It's quite an unusual, quite a difficult skill to actually just go and approach a group of young lads or, any young people.
You've got to
have that likability where they can connect instantly.
Well, you've got to constantly risk assess before you approach them, when you're with them, and when you leave, really, because it's the little nuances. So they might turn their back on you, the conversation might drop, and that means don't approach. So
it's time to go.
Because and when you're talking to them first time, we've got a lot of resistance, and we get 10, 15 minutes, then they kind of either move away from us, turn their back, drop the voices. So these little things you've got to know when that means they want us to leave, because if you overstay, you don't want to overstay your welcome and become a nuisance to them. We're going into their territory. They're not coming into a club. And that's why you've got to respect that at all times. And if they turn their backs, we go. you know, but we don't get that anymore, luckily. And now we've got them to come up to the youth club, do a football regular Fridays. We're going to start the Rachaele United 2 football team, hopefully, so that's really exciting.
Being in a space like this just creates that opportunity. So like when I first started youth work, I actually was doing football, like we were calling it social football.
Yeah.
And we were playing predominantly just like this in places like a multi-use game area. I was at the time, I was a 19-year-old boy, in a sense still a boy, trying to help other young kids by doing youth work. And we were in this, we were in a mugger. I remember we would have 2 teams, split it, try and even it as possible. We'd have a massive music speaker on the side. And we were quite surprised actually, because the speaker would then gather the girls.
Yeah.
So they'd be like dancing and doing all that sort of thing whilst the boys were playing football. And just the space, I'd like to think that everybody there felt safe.
Yeah.
And, you know, at first they're like, what are you doing? Why do you want to play football with us? And we were just like, we just want to chat, we just want to have a bit of a kick around and, you know, talk about life and, you know, just have fun. And it was just so, they were just in it. So on an evening, you would sort of, park over where we parked and then come through and walk around?
Yeah.
And do you sort of do a loop, or is it just you'll go anywhere? Sort of?
Usually park up at the Hill Youth Club. Then we'll walk down here. If there's a group here, we obviously stop and speak to them. If it's our usual crew, we know we work with them kind of 3 times a week now.
Do you think the parents that perhaps come down and see you here are really grateful and thinking, wow, at least there's somebody out there?
Yeah, so now the parents are starting to see who we are, so we're like going to do some one-to-one with some of these kids, so we're trying to get in contact, you know, helping them get into school and stuff, so they're starting to realise we're out there for that group. Quite often when we see parents out here, like you say, they're all that lot, and it'll be people with their younger ones. That's the parents that see us out here. But yeah, I think it's starting to get known now. We feedback what they want, we try and provide, because we know it's going to meet the needs of...
Yeah, youth-led, isn't it?
Yeah, it is youth-led. That's what youth work is. The young people lead, you follow and provide, really. I get a buzz out of it because they are the elixir of life. You know, we're missing a trick not hanging around with young people because they make you feel youthful.
I personally know young people that have been exploited and seen the devastation that causes to their families and obviously the young person themselves. And not for anybody's fault, but the lack of support that is there for the psychological effects of that, for the parents, for the siblings, and for the young person, should they come out of it and whilst they're in it. And I feel very passionately about providing, BYCE, we want to be there for those families and those young people.
It's building that trust. So they're quite funny. First, it took us 6 months of being called, first we were called pedos for 6 months, and they're gate kept, especially the younger ones. It's interesting as well, do you know what I mean? And you can't come into this group and go away with your pedos. And then we went on for a couple of months with social workers. So real trust issues with adults. And I think a lot of kids that end up in that have a lot of adults telling them what they should and shouldn't be doing. Do you know what I mean? Rather than just listening to them. It takes a long time on detached to build trusting relationships with young people. It took us 6 months for them to let us in. We would do maximum 10 minutes with them twice a week before we got the kind of, we need to back off and leave them now. So it's having somebody outside of that place that's not an authority figure where they can feel like it's okay to kick off. They kick off at us sometimes, do you know what I mean? But we don't chastise them.
Yeah.
You don't exclude them. So sometimes make me laugh. They're 12-year-old, 40-year-old men because they're so grown up and so and they give what? And all it's just you're acting like a man, but you're that big. But you're actually really, really skilled as well, in what you can do. And that's where we're missing a trick because a lot of those kids are going to end up not achieving their hopes and dreams, but actually it just frustrates me because they are just really bright, really skilled, critical thinkers.
We couldn't see Kelly and Selma in action due to the nature of their work and the protection of the children that they help. But what you could clearly see was a passion within them that is desperate to help others and desperate to make a difference by giving young people the best chance in life. To find out more, go to ordinarykindness.co.uk, or to donate, go to our Just Giving page and search Ordinary Kindness.
I read that on social media the other day, like it was a 3-word or something. You know, what 3 words would you tell yourself? And mine was, you are loved, because that's really important. And to make people feel like they are loved. And also that just always hang on for that next day, because things do change.